Hello all, a very good day to all of you. This is Vilasini from Veranda IAS and friends, இன்னைக்கு வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா we are going to be looking at the current affairs analysis for the dates 28th and 29th August 2025. So yes, the source that we will be following is the Hindu International Edition, right? So friends, inga வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா usually when we start on a daily basis, we discuss on something positive, right? So today I have a very interesting story for you. It's about a bird, okay, and the story of a photographer. Fine. So inga vandu pathina that the bird that we are going to be talking about is called as hornbill. Okay. So any idea about this bird? Idu patti padichirkingla? So this bird is called as the hornbill. Yen vandu indha per pathingana on top of its beak ku vandu it is also called as bill. Okay, on top of its beak it has a horn like structure. So adanala it is called as hornbill. Okay, so one very nice thing about this bird is that it is known to have a very majestic looking body. Fine. Usually vandu pathina across the world in tropical evergreen forests you can come across this bird called as the hornbill. A very majestic looking bird, right? Nice black big feathers with different colors. So around the world ஏகப்பட்ட varieties of hornbills இருக்கு. இந்த hornbillsக்கு வந்து சில இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்கான traits இருக்கு. Number one, pathingana, it is also known by a nickname, and the nickname of hornbill is it is called as farmers of the forest. Farmers of the forest. Okay, so farmers of the forest na enna, and why does the hornbill have this name? See, hornbills vandu pathingana, it is more or less omnivorous in its diet. Omnivore na enna, it eats both fruits as well as tiny insects, etc. But in the context of although it is an omnivore, its major diet comprises of fruits. So it is also called as a frugivore. Okay, so fruit சாப்பிடும்போது what this hornbill will do is as it consumes the fruit, right, it will ensure that the seeds, right, are getting dispersed across the forest, and this will in turn emerge as new trees. So இதனால வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா hornbills have a nickname called as farmers of the forest. Okay, so these are few things about hornbills. And next வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா one more interesting thing is that hornbills form monogamous bonds, right, which means they only have one mate for life. Okay, so these are few characteristics about hornbills. But இதில் என்ன நம்ம பார்க்க போகிறோம்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா the story of a photographer and how he was fascinated by the hornbills. So he's reading a blog, right? So இந்த story வந்து ஏன் ரொம்ப significantன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா it will actually connect a lot with your UPSC preparation. So somewhere in Indonesia, okay, there was a photographer. இவர் வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா he decided from a very young age that as he grows up he wants to become a wildlife photographer. So how did this curiosity start அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அங்கே வந்து இந்தோனேஷியாவில் இட்ஸ் ஃபேமஸ் ஃபார் ஸ்பைசஸ், ரைட்? ஸோ தேர் ஹிஸ் கிராண்ட் மதர் வந்து யூஸ் டு ட்ரை சர்டன் சில்லிஸ் எக்ஸெட்ரா. இந்த ஹார்ன்பில்ஸ் வந்து அடிக்கடி அங்கே வந்து இட் வில் கிரியேட் அ மெஸ். ஸோ அப்போவே ஹி ஸ்டார்டட் லைக்கிங் ஹார்ன்பில்ஸ். ஸோ ஆஸ் டைம் வென்ட் பை, ஆஸ் தி இயர்ஸ் வென்ட் பை, ரைட், இவர் வந்து ஹி என்டர்ஸ் இன் டு அ ஃபாரஸ்ட், ஃபைன், சம்வேர் இன் சவுத் ஈஸ்ட் ஏஷியா. ஸோ இன் தாய்லாண்ட் ஒரு பெரிய ஃபாரஸ்ட்குள்ளே போகிறாரு. அண்ட் தென் ஹி டிசைட்ஸ் தட் ஹி ஹேஸ் டு டேக் நைஸ் ஃபோட்டோகிராஃப்ஸ் ஆஃப் ஹார்ன்பில்ஸ். So என்ன ஆகுதுன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா when he watches up he notices a gigantic bird flying with a red beak. Okay, so இந்த hornbill-ஓட variety வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா it is called as a rhino hornbill. So hornbill varieties நிறையா இருக்குது, right? So here வந்து he decided that hornbills வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா they fly at such great heights. So if he has to capture very good images, இவரும் வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா he has to learn tree climbing. So to take good photos of hornbills, he started learning how to climb trees. It started there. Then poga vandu pathingana he worked upon himself, he improved his angles, right? So he was able to get better pictures. So time aga the quality of his photographs also improved. But now there was a challenge. So இவரோட லைஃப்பில் வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா one of the most important photographs that he wanted to take was basically the nest of a hornbill. So இந்த image பாருங்க, right, you will basically notice that this is nothing but a hornbill's nest. So compared to many other birds around us, in many birds which lay exposed nest, for example இங்கே நிறைய birds நம்மளை சுற்றி பார்க்கலாம், crow, right, you will notice that their nests are exposed, we can see. பட் ஹார்ன்பில்ஸில் இருக்கிற மோஸ்ட் இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங் ஃபீச்சர் வந்து என்னன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா மரத்துக்குள்ளே இன்சைட் அ கேவிட்டி, ரைட், when the female is pregnant it will go inside, right, and it will stay in there for quite some time, and after the young one is born, right, it will still stay inside, and the only contact female young one and outside world kum pathingana it is the male hornbill. Okay, so basically or a tree or a cavity kulla female will get inside, right? It will stay there for almost 6 months. And என்ன ஆகும்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அங்கே இருக்கிற ஹோல்ஸ் எல்லாமே நிறையா twigs, நிறையா மெட்டீரியல்ஸ் வச்சு they'll close it off. So now the scope for any threat, the scope for any predator attack வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா it is very very less. So in the context one very sad thing is that if at all, right, the male hornbill dies, the female and the young one will also die. ஏன் வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா number one they form monogamous bonds. Number two வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா the female and the young one will keep waiting for the male to bring food for it. So this is the relationship that hornbills face, right? So in the photographer or the main aim was to capture what the inside of a hornbill nest actually looks like. So இதை வந்து பண்ணுறதுக்கு he had to understand the bird first, he had to understand which nest would be safe, and yes, he did go about taking a photograph of that as well. So இதிலிருந்து what we can learn is that it took him around 10 years to perfect the actual photographs that he wanted. So what we can basically understand over here is that perseverance and dedication can actually take you anywhere that you want in your life. So yes, talking about government exams, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years prepare பண்ணிட்டே நிறைய பேர் வந்து they give up. They feel this is not right for them. But this photographer is an inspiration, correct? He spent 10 years of his life, 10 years of his life to do something that he loves. So all I wanted to tell you is, if you have the desire, if you have the passion, கண்டிப்பா உங்களால முடியும். So you have to believe in yourself first, and if that is there, definitely things will align your way. Okay, so guys, with this, one thing that I wanted to tell you was the 28th August 2025 pathina, there was no official paper which was being released, right? Ganesh Chaturthi ka adutha naal there was no particular paper which was being released. So what we will do is we will cover general topics from both and with special focus on 29th August along with few more extra editorials. Okay, so in the context at 29th August, what are we going to see? Number one pathina, US officials call conflict in Ukraine as Modi's war. Okay, so now in this context, yes, the ongoing issue, right, between Russia, Ukraine, India, US tariffs on India. So idu vandu pathina it is purely dealing with international relations, GS paper 2. Amoebic encephalitis reported in Kerala, right? So in the edathila diseases, right, we already spoke about like how many diseases are spreading especially through water. So in the context amoebic encephalitis, what is happening in this context, idu vandu we will try understanding. So here idu vandu pathina unga science and tech GS paper 3. Next, industrial growth recovers to a 4-month high of 3.5%. So in the context yes, talking about industrial growth, unga GS paper 3 economy. இதே கான்டெக்ட்ஸை வந்து we will try understanding index of industrial production, right, the 8 core industries, இது எல்லாமே we'll try understanding. Next, India Japan ties, right, இது வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா bilateral relations, உங்கள் GS paper 2 international relations. So here in the context we all know, right, Prime Minister Modi is basically going to travel to Japan, right, he's also going to travel to China, especially ahead of the SCO meet which is going to take place, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting. So in the context yes, with regard to Japan, what are we talking about, and also yes, what are the expected outcomes of this meet, adu vandu we will try understanding. Next, இதே context வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா nearly 60% of the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme budget already spent in the first 5 months. So yes, initiatives, right, so unga GS paper 2 social justice kila idu kondu varalam. Now in this context, please understand the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, right, it basically aims at providing 100 days of work, right. So in the context vandu pathingana, right, regarding the funds, what many people have said is majority of the funds which have been allocated for this particular financial year has actually been used to clear the previous year's backlogs, right. So about this scheme, right, what is its mandate, right, who is included, right, what is the position of women over here, the kind of work that will be performed, unemployment allowances irka, idu ellame we will try understanding. Okay, so next vandu pathingana, which sectors are worst hit by tariffs. So in the context yes, the ongoing issue, right, between US and India, right, our exports, our sectors in our country, right, what are we thinking of, self-reliance, right, supporting domestic economies, right. So in the context of the ongoing tussle which is taking place between India and US in terms of tariffs, இது we will try understanding, okay, just the sectors which are affected, avladhan. So இது பாத்தீங்கன்னா yes உங்களோட GS paper 2 international relations. Next, building health for 1.4 billion. Right, so in the context of yes, healthcare, right, so India we've overtaken China to become the most populous country in the world. So yes, we do face a challenge. Number one, ensuring that healthcare is inclusive. Healthcare or outreach is expanded. Number two, also ensuring that healthcare is affordable. So how do we balance this out, right? What are some issues that we are facing? இதை எப்படி leverage பண்ணலாம்? So this will be the topic of discussion. So in the context health as a topic பாத்தீங்கன்னா it features as an important area in your GS paper 2 social justice. And next பாத்தீங்கன்னா there was a mention about wildfires. So forest fires, how do they take place, right? Certain places where recently forest fires have been occurring. What are the causes, what are the impacts, right, and some measures which can be taken to address the issue of wildfires, right. So wildfires as such ungaloda GS paper 3 environment la kondu varalam, right. So in this context, yes, idella da the major topics that we will be discussing in the content of today. Okay, so next let's start off with this. So number 1, US officials, right, calls conflict in Ukraine Modi's war. Okay, so now in this context, let us keep the controversies aside. With regard to the examination point of view, what is required, right? So in their context, yes, let us just talk a little bit about the background, right? So number 1, let's talk about them in parts. So first let's talk about Russia and Ukraine, right? So Russia and Ukraine strained relationships have been there for quite some time, right? And in the context the minute Russia-Ukraine war started and was going on, right, நிறைய western countries imposed heavy sanctions on Russia. So Russia it supplies crude oil, it supplies coal, petroleum, natural gas, right, many such uranium, etc. So in the context the minute the war was going on, right, heavy western sanctions were being imposed upon Russia. So Russia was looking at options to diversify, right. So it started selling crude oil பாத்தீங்கன்னா ரொம்பவே highly discounted prices Russia started selling out crude oil. Now for a country like India, right, யோசிச்சு பாருங்க India, right, if we talk about our balance of payments, right, here பாத்தீங்கன்னா we are very dependent, right, on crude oil imports. We are very dependent on crude oil imports. So in the context if there is a country which is willing to offer crude oil to us, especially at discounted prices, definitely we would agree, right. So in the context India started procuring crude oil from Russia, right, at slightly higher quantities than what it was before, right. And this is very important ஏன் பாத்தீங்கன்னா Russia கிட்ட இருந்து discounted prices crude oil நம்ம import பண்ணும்போது it helps keep the inflation in check, right. The prices can be maintained in a stable manner. So this is one part, okay, Russia-Ukraine war and how India has been procuring crude oil from Russia. We have also been getting missile systems like the S-400 defense missile system from Russia. This is on one side. Now let us talk about the other side. Other side let's talk about the relationship between US and that of India. So now over here long time back, right, Trump, so we all know Trump is an American nationalist. Trump when he came to power, right, he came up with this notion of make America great again, right, make America great again. So in the context yes, Trump had way back earlier threatened that in the countries US has an unfavorable trade balance, he will impose retaliatory tariffs. And on the time sonna value was 26%, right. But later, yes, looking at the context of India and US, Trump said on Indian goods entering the US, right, he will impose a 25% tariff. So what is a tariff? A tax on imports. So in the context it was initially 25%. He also said that a penalty would be there. ஏன் penalty இருக்கும்? Because India is procuring crude oil from Russia, defense systems from Russia, especially with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, and this money, right, with which India வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா crude oil வாங்குறதுக்கு pay பண்ற money is indirectly used by Russia also to fund the war. So this is something that Trump was not very happy about. So in the context, a penalty of an additional 25% tariff was being put on India. So totally வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா 50%. So yes, 50% நம்ம மேல போடும்போது we felt it was highly unreasonable, right? Many sectors are heavily getting affected. For example, the agriculture sector, the MSME sector, right? And also நம்ம exports வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா some of our major exports which can get hit, shrimp farming, selling of shrimp, right? Next adu thavara vandu pathina certain precious stones, right? Many sectors are getting affected severely because of high imposition of tariffs. So this is the situation so far. So in the context வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா India as a country, we have always said that in a world where the geopolitical order வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா is getting highly fragmented, right, we as a country should also look out for our interests. So in the context வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா us procuring oil from Russia is to ensure that in our economy the food prices are kept in, the prices are kept in inflation. அதே மாதிரி வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா India has also said that countries like China, right, countries like even US to that extent are procuring certain deposits, certain crude oil from Russia. For example, US வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா they procure uranium from Russia. European Union countries வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா they again procure crude oil from Russia. So India clearly said that these are Western double standards, right? So in the context this has been the background of the issue so far, right? So now here vandu pathina they have gone forward and they have said that the reason why the additional tariffs have been imposed is primarily because India procuring oil from Russia, right? And in the context வந்து yes, there were some controversies, that is not required, but overall வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா the imposition of these tariffs, right, is not just affecting India sectors but is also affecting local US markets, right? So in the context வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா yes, US taxpayers லந்து, right, many people are going to be affected because the goods that should be available to them at discounted prices will not be available as such, right? At the same time vandu yes, India has also pointed out that many countries like even China, right, have been doing this with Russia and not many measures have been taken on them, but why us? So this has been the background of the issue so far. So in the context yes, the relationship between India and US is getting a little bit strained, and what many people say is time poga poga it is possible that we may lean closer to Russia. Yes, and also இப்போ வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting to take place in China, right, we will know further developments which will eventually happen after that, right? So in the part I hope it is clear to all of you. So in the context read about bilateral trade, read about tariffs, read about retaliatory tariffs, right, read about India US relations, Russia Ukraine war, read about its implications on India. இது எல்லாமே கொஞ்சம் இம்பார்ட்டண்ட்டாக இருக்கலாம். Okay, so these are few things. So guys, with this moving forward, Kerala reports one more case of Amoebic encephalitis, right? So in the context நம்ம already முன்னாடி பார்த்தோம், right, what basically happened was in the context of Kerala, நிறைய water bodies are there, right? It's a very beautiful place with many water bodies. So இங்க வந்து என்னன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா a brain infection is spreading, and this is primarily caused because of a particular variety of amoeba. And in the amoeba வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, right, it is called as Naegleria fowleri, okay? So that is the name of the amoeba. So இந்த amoeba வந்து என்ன பண்ணுன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, especially when people jump into contaminated waters or even be it contaminated soil or land, especially waterல வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா through the nostril it can enter and travel up to the brain, right? And here வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா it can cause great damage, right? Severe headache, fever, sometimes even hallucinations, coma, and even to the extent of death. So here வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா few cases have been reported in the state of Kerala with regard to this particular disease, right? And now watchful steps are being taken. So in the context, yes, because it is spreading through water bodies, right? Here it is very important that number one, research and development நம்ம further improve பண்ணணும், correct? Disease surveillance mechanisms நம்ம improve பண்ணணும். Number 3, right, water effluent norms. To what extent can biological matter be there? Other one we have to quantify and determine. Regular monitoring of water should take place, right? Samples நம்ம test பண்ணிக்கிட்டே இருக்கணும், so that to find out whether how much concentration of such microorganisms are there. Because இது வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா can have a great impact on human health, right? We never know how it enters. Correct? So these are few things. So in the case the state of Kerala, amoebic encephalitis or cases when the slower it is on the rise. So it is important to take certain watchful steps to ensure that it does not further spread. So yes, English la or saying irukalla, prevention is better than cure. So in the context taking adequate steps, right, creating awareness, right, NGOs oda help ah irukkalam, civil society groups oda help ah irukkalam, self-help groups can be there. Inga ellarume can help spread awareness. Social media can help in spreading awareness, right? Posters to tell people not to enter into such water bodies. All this could go a long way in ensuring that better health of the people is promoted. Okay, so this is one. In the context, let me just reiterate, I think we already studied this. ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research, is planning on doing a study, right, of many water bodies in our country. So in the water bodies irukra samples, right, especially testing it for various kind of viruses and diseases kaga pannalan irukanga. So yes, idu ellame panna we will be able to ensure that our waters are safe, because water is a vital asset for all. But இதே இடத்துல contaminated water consume பண்ண we are putting our health at risk. Health risk la இருந்துச்சுனா the family will be spending most of its money only on healthcare expenses. So in the context the requirement to take care of education, right, of other needs will become less. And yes, in turn they will get trapped in a cycle of poverty. And also ida aachana we will not be able to reap the benefits of our demographic dividend, right? So these are few things. So in the context from the science and tech point of view, as a disease amoebic encephalitis na enna, but also from a governance point of view, how do we tackle such issues? This is the context in which you should understand these topics. Okay, so now moving forward, let's talk about this. Industrial growth recovers to 4-month high of 3.5% on broad-based growth, right? So in the context, yes, we need to understand, right, the index of industrial production. Okay, so growth rate in July வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா 3.5%, almost a 4-month high. But இதுவே நீங்க பாருங்க Janல it was 5.21%, but going forward, right, in the subsequent months வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா it hit a low, and finally Julyல வந்து it has reached 3.5%. So in the context overall வந்து நிறைய sectors வந்து the performance has improved, right? That is what they have said. So in the context what we need to understand is few things. So number one, the growth rate has gone up to 3.5%, right, especially after 4 months, right? So what were the major factors which are responsible for this in pathina? So there was a great amount of recovery in capital goods, manufacturing, consumer goods, right? Individual sector performances pathona, manufacturing vande it grew 5.4%. Manufacturing grew 5.4%. Next vande pathina, electricity returned to the growth after 2 months of contraction. But on the other hand, if you talk about mining actually declined. So like this vandu pathina, many sectors have actually benefited. But more than all this, let me tell you this, UPSC point of view la pathina, this data is going to change, keep on changing. So examination point of view la vandu pathina, knowing what is index of industrial production, knowing what is 8 core industries, that is what matters. So in the context let us understand few things. So index of industrial production abdina, number one, it talks about the growth rate of different industrial sectors over a given period of time, right? So in the இடத்துல வந்து we primarily categorizing all these industrial products into 3 major sectors. என்னலாம் வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா electricity, mining and manufacturing. Okay, so here வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா number one, இதோட primary aim வந்து is to just tell us what has been the performance of various sectors, right? How are they progressing, which is increasing, which is decreasing. இதை understand பண்றதுக்கு index of industrial production is quite useful. Okay, so in the context this is one. Next one, if we talk about 8 core industries, see in the index of industrial production we're primarily talking about three major sectors, right? Mining, manufacturing, electricity. But idile vandu pathina, if you talk about 8 core industries, is primarily referred to certain specific industries, right, which make up around 40.2% of all the items included in the index of industrial production. So idu vandu pathina, it is released monthly, right, by Office of Economic Advisor, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Base year vandu pathina to 2011 and 12. Okay, so இதே இடத்துல, yes, one more thing we need to understand is what are the various industries and in terms of their percentage weight. Yes, so yes, இதுக்கு வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா there is a small code word RESCO crude NCF. Okay, so RES meaning refineries, E for electricity, S for steel, CO for coal. Next, crude oil. Next, natural gas, cement, fertilizers. RESCO, crude, NCF, right? So sometimes for you to remember things, you have to come up with little bit of acronyms, right? Any simpler acronym, if you're able to, it is fine. So idu vandu pathina, we've organized it in the context of decreasing order, big to small. So R for refineries, E for electricity, then S for steel, coal, crude oil, natural gas, cement, fertilizers. These are the values. Highest vandu pathina refinery in terms of weight in percentage, followed by that is electricity 19.85%, steel production 17.92, coal 10.33, crude oil 8.98, natural gas 6.88, cement 5.37 and fertilizer 2.63. Okay, so these are the various weights in percentage. Fine. So in the context, what is index of industrial production? What are the 8 core industries, right? In what frequency is it released? Who releases it? Base year enna? What are the sectors included? Ivlo mattu therinjikittingana, from a prelims point of view, it will be useful. That's it. Okay. So now moving forward, let's talk about it. Security agreement, business packs, bullet train ride on PM's Japan agenda, right? So in the context, like I already said, our Indian Prime Minister will be basically visiting Japan, right? So after visiting Japan, he'll also be traveling to China, and especially ahead of the SCO summit, which is to take place in China. So in the context, if we talk about Japan and India, right, rendu countries mein pathina, they play a vital role in influencing the Pacific Ocean region. So in the context, we also know that India, Japan, US and Australia are a part of a grouping called as Quad, correct? 4 countries are there. In the countries, number 1 India, number 2 US, next we have Japan, and next one we have Australia, right? So these countries, so in the Quad grouping, why is it so important in pathina? Number 1, Pacific Ocean la irukra maritime security improve pandradhukku it could be very useful. Next one pathina, it is also a way in which we can control China's aggression in the Pacific Ocean, South China Sea, right? So this is one. So in the context, the Quad is quite important. Next one pathina, with regard to what we have been discussing, right, they've also been talking about India, Japan, Indo-Pacific plans, right? Next one pathina, they're talking about defense hardware purchases, right? Then economic point of view la pathina, we're talking about supply chains, artificial intelligence, critical minerals, right? Japan's investments into India, bullet trains in India, idu pathiyala nama pesittu irukom, right? And also apart from that, how businesses can engage with each other, right? So in the context, yes, all these things are on the agenda of discussion. And yes, overall vandu pathina, Japan, in terms of India and Japan, be it infrastructure, be it defense, right? We also have an exercise between India and Japan called as Dharma Guardian, right? Be it Quad, we are engaging quite well. So in the context, we are talking about furthering these ties, right? So these are all on the scope of discussion. When the actual meeting takes place, what was the outcomes of it. That's it. Okay. So next, let's talk about this article. Unga GS paper 2 social justice la pathina, nearly 60% of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme budget already spent in first 5 months of financial year, right? So this is very concerning. யோசிச்சு பாருங்க, 1 இயருக்கு ஒதுக்கப்பட்ட பட்ஜெட் 5 monthsலே 60% முடிஞ்சிருச்சுன்னா what about after that, right? There will be, it's going to be a question mark. So ஏன் அப்படி, what was the reason why this happened அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, number 1, the budget of this year was used to was used to basically repay certain amounts which had to be paid, which were lagging on for last year. So that was the main reason why this has happened. So in the context of why it is concerning is because number one, in the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme has actually been providing employment to a lot of people, right? So inga vandu in the 100 days of work, right, with a minimum wage, this has been possible. So here vandu pathina, the budgetary constraints are going to be there, the number of people who can get actually benefited by it pathina will come down. So it does not serve the overall purpose behind why this even exists or the scheme exists in the first place. Correct? So in the context, let us understand a few things one by one. So yes, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, இது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு Ministry of Rural Development ஓட scheme. It is a centrally sponsored scheme. Idea வந்து என்ன? 100 days of employment, right, will be given to rural households undertaking unskilled manual work. The idea is to ensure that these people can get a certain amount of livelihood security which is taken care. So in the context, the target is primarily rural households, right? Adult members 18 years plus who are willing to do some type of unskilled manual labor, they are welcome. And one more thing that they have said is 1/3 of the beneficiaries need to be women. Right, and next, yes, one more thing that they have also said is that majority of the works that need to be done will be determined by the Grama Sabha. So ஒரு person வந்து if he is going to work in a particular village, right, work-க்கும் அவங்க இருக்கிற டிஸ்டன்ஸ்க்கும் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா it should be within 5 kilometers. அதுக்கு மேலே இருந்துச்சுன்னா yes, some amount of travel allowance can also be given. Not just that. Now say for example there is a person, அவங்க வந்து இன்ட்ரெஸ்டடாக இருக்காங்க, பட் இங்கே வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா say within they have applied, they have expressed interest. But within 15 days, if a work is not assigned, then what will happen is they are entitled to an unemployment allowance. In the unemployment allowances, rate it is 1/4 of the minimum wage which is given for 30 days. So in the an unemployment allowance is also given to them so that they also have a certain amount of minimum guarantee. Okay, so these are few things about the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So in the context, yes, why this was in news abdin pathina, number one, the total amount of budget which was allocated for 25-26 was somewhere around 86,000 crores. But idla vandu pathina already spent amount vandu pathina around 51,521 crore, right, which is almost close to 60%. So inga if almost so much amount of funds are already spent, right, so how is it going to benefit the people who are actually there? So number one, this may again result in certain inclusion exclusion errors. Many people who were dependent on this, avangalukku kadaikira or opportunity might not be there, right? So again over here the context of promoting or empowering marginalized sections, coming up with ensuring that assets in rural areas are developed, idu ellame will get compromised and will take a hit. Okay, so this is the context of this particular article. In the context, just go read about Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, its salient features, criteria, revise all of it. And if associated are PYQs, please do solve. Okay, so next, moving forward, let's talk about this. Which sectors are worst hit by tariffs? Which sectors are worst hit by tariffs, right? So in the context, number one, we need to understand they're talking about India-US ties, right, and how the tariffs at the rate of 50%, எந்தெந்த sectors are ரொம்பவே பாதிக்கப்பட போகுது, right, because of this, and also which sectors are somewhere exempt from these tariffs, right? So இதுதான் is a scope of discussion. We just spoke about it, right? We know what is the ongoing tussle. India-US ties highly strained, initially 25% and now 50%. So yes, certain sectors are getting massively hit. So in the context, yes, specifically talking about the sectors, number one, shrimp, right? So shrimp vandu pathina, especially from Andhra Pradesh, right, large quantities of shrimp are being exported. But here vandu pathina, export competitiveness will also come down when high level of tariffs are going to be imposed, right? So this is again a cause of concern. Next vandu pathina, many other sectors, for example textiles and apparel sector vandu will be massively hit abdin sollirukanga, right? Apart from that, other sectors like carpets etc, idalam can also get terribly hit, right? So shrimp, diamonds, jewelry, textiles, apparels, etc. All this can see a major hit. இதெல்லாமே வந்து severely hit ஆக போற sectors. Moderately hit என்னன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா organic chemicals, metals, machinery exports, right? இது எல்லாமே வந்து to some extent will be moderately hit. So massively hit, moderately hit. So here the emphasis has been on few things. Number one, domestic economy நம்ம improve பண்ணணும். We need to focus on becoming Atmanirbhar, that is self-reliant, and we need to diversify our dependence on other countries. So this could be the ideal way forward, right? So here the idea is to go Swadeshi, vocal for local. That will be the motto அப்படின்னு சொல்லியிருக்காங்க. So yes, talking about the numbers, right, with regard to the majorly affected sectors வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா shrimp, right? So here shrimp வந்து it fell massively after tariffs, somewhere like it has dropped down massively. Next, textiles and apparels, right? In the இடத்துல certain places which are highly hit. Tirupur, we all know. Surat, they are highly hit, right? High level of job losses can take place, right? Because the competitiveness of these sectors will come down. Adhe mari jewelry and gemstones can also get hit. Diamond polishing industry can also be hit. Idu ellame are some sectors which will get severely affected. In the context there, I wanted to read about the background information. For example, if tariffs are imposed, what could be the implications of tariffs? Right, and what is what are some sectors which will be affected and how to improve our resilience towards it. Idu patti mattu poi padinga. Okay, so this is one. Next, let's talk about this topic, building health for 1.4 billion Indians. Okay, building health for 1.4 billion Indians. This is again an editorial topic. The previous topic was also an editorial topic because 28th August there were not significant topics. We've taken more editorials. So let's just go through it and we'll try understanding them as well. From a mains point of view, useful ah irkalam. So yes, in the context vandu pathina, let us understand few things. So here vandu the author says, as India's population is increasing, right, there are two twin challenges in front of us. என்ன சேலஞ்சுன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, number one, expanding healthcare access to people who are in undeserved regions. We have to expand our healthcare access to them. Number one. Number two, என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, it's not just about expanding, but it is also about ensuring affordability. Right? So how do we ensure affordability? Right? So making medicines available, right? Primary healthcare, secondary, tertiary healthcare should be available. Diagnostics should be possible, right? Then surveillance measures, ellame nama step by step improve panano. That is how we can make it accessible, affordable as well. Okay? So all this have been cited, and idu yen theva appdin pathingana, if at all we are looking at an inclusive growth model, this is highly required. So in the context, number one, they have spoken about many areas, right, where, for example, insurance pati pesirukanga, right? Then later they have spoken about expanding coverage. Going forward, they have also spoken about the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, Ayushman Bharat, right? They have spoken about it. Evlo per cover pandranga. Next என்ன சொல்லியிருக்காங்கன்னா, although many families are insured, right, non-communicable diseases நால இருக்கிற burden is very high. So the expenses that many families are having because of having issues like hypertension, diabetes, cancer, right? So idume vande is taking a toll on the overall expenses. So all this has also been cited. Okay, next vande pathina, they have also spoken about what should be the ideal way forward, right? So in the edathla vande what should be the ideal way forward, that will be the major takeaway, and that we will anyway be looking at. So let us understand few things. So yes, challenges patti nama pesitom. Number one, expanding it, and number two, also ensuring affordability. Here ennalam theva, right? So number one, ensuring that diagnosis is good, digital healthcare services are being promoted, investment in healthcare is promoted, right? So inga vandu pathina, the budgetary allocation for healthcare, right, with reference to the GDP should also be increased. Next one vandu pathina, the coverage, the insurance coverage that we have should also be made, should be expanded. So here vandu pathina, number one, if we talk about insurance, right, what they are saying is risk pooling through insurance is the most effective way to make costly healthcare accessible. However, penetration is low. So inga vandu pathina, only 15 to 18% of Indians are insured, right? Only 15 to 18%. So here vandu pathina, insurance penetration is also a problem. Next one வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா one more thing we need to understand with regard to insurance. Insurance வந்து we should not look at a crisis shield, right? Like only when something happens it is needed அப்படின்னு பார்க்காம it should be viewed in the point of view of a necessity, right? Because anytime anything can happen we never know. So இந்த இடத்துல yes what is required is எல்லா stakeholders ஓட participation is required. The participation of all stakeholders, from the patient to the healthcare providers to the government to NGOs to civil society groups, right, to corporates, all of their participation is required. Only then வந்து can this be made much more accessible and efficient. Next வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா if you talk about other aspects, right, for example if you talk about diagnostics, if you talk about even like you know with regard to machines etc. என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா இந்தியா வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா it is performing much better than many western countries. For example they have said if you take MRI, right, MRI machine in India handles far more scans daily than that of the West, right? But here வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா although the use of MRI is there, number one, is it accessible to all? Number two, cities இருக்கு. What about tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Has it been able to penetrate inside, right? Has it been efficient enough to get in there? அது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா it still remains a question mark. Next, what they are saying is with regard to costing and with regard to few other things. For example, like I said, although certain families are insured, right? Problem is the burden or the costs or the expenses caused because of non-communicable diseases வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா it is high. For example, diabetes இருக்கட்டும், cancer இருக்கட்டும், hypertension இருக்கட்டும், this is also taking a toll on the healthcare expenses. So here வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா number one, it is important to ensure that the diagnostic costs are being reduced, right? Diagnostic costs are being reduced. Next one வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா we have to focus on promoting preventive healthcare, right? And here வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா right accessible healthcare, better research and development, NCDs காக few more initiatives so that people can benefit, right? Especially insured populations வந்து so that they don't face the brunt of it, more efforts need to be taken. Next one வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா number one, if you talk about like you know the way forward, health is a vital asset, right? So only if your health is good will you be able to do anything. So இங்க எடுத்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா health வந்து or good health is a right. It is not a luxury, it is not a privilege, but it is actually a basic right that everybody should be entitled to. So in the context of yes, although there have been schemes like Ayushman Bharat, right, where the coverage has been very high, further expanding it, making it accessible, making it affordable, making it inclusive, especially to vulnerable sections. For example, tribes தான் பாத்தீங்கன்னா they neglected. So நிறைய vulnerable sectionsக்கு கூட இதை நம்ம எடுத்துட்டு போனோம், right? Healthcare expenses, for example we have the PM Jan Aushadhi Yojana where we are trying to provide generic medicines at very affordable prices. இது எல்லாமே should be made available to people. So healthcare structure வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா it has to be democratized. And next one வந்து here a massive public private partnership is required to ensure that the outreach of healthcare is much more better. Okay, so these are few things with regard to healthcare. Fine. So in the context say yes, going forward because நம்ம வந்து ஒரு ரொம்ப populous country ஆயிட்டோம். So what should be the strategy forward so that number one, we tend to have a healthy population. Number two, healthy population இருந்தா we can reap the benefits of our demographic dividend. And if we can do that, 2047 the target of becoming a Vikshit Bharat can be made achievable. Okay, so these are few things. So next in this context, let's also talk about this. Wildfires reverse the pollution progress in North America. So in the context, yes, number one, what we need to understand is wildfires. So across the world, வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா climate change events are on the rise. For example, what many people have said is 2024 by far has been the hottest year on record so far, right? So we don't know if 2025 will overtake 2024, but wait பண்ணி பார்க்கலாம். But as the time goes by, right, global temperatures increase aga, the earth is becoming warmer and warmer, and this is driving global warming and climate change. So in the context across the world, right, since temperatures are increasing, wildfire events வந்து massively increase ஆகுது. So in the context number one, if you talk about wildfires, right, a sudden fire which is spreading across the entire forest is called as a wildfire. So yes, some conditions, இப்போ natural conditions வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா number one, blazing sunlight, right? Number two, for example, when dry leaves or grass clash against each other, sparks are produced. In the sparks, the fire will start spreading. Next, anthropogenic reasons வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா in the name of deforestation, shifting cultivation, right, in the name of certain practices like stubble burning, இது எல்லாமே வந்து can also cause certain wildfire events, right, especially when people go camping, carelessness, right, so all this can trigger wildfire episodes. So here especially wildfires நடக்க number one, many flora and fauna will be affected. Life க்கு வந்து there will be threat, many property can be damaged, right, and next one வந்து also the response of the government to act on it, right, that is there, right. Next one வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா it will also result in the death of many sensitive flora and fauna because they will not be able to take care of themselves. So overall வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா these are all the implication of wildfires. So in the context yes, please do read about wildfires, please do read about methods to address this, right. So நிறைய countries what they are doing, for example இப்போ வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா US and Canada wildfires are increasing. Few years ago Australia we had the wild bush fires. So in the context of India, even last year Uttarakhand region we had many wildfires which were taking place. So yes, wildfires are frequently in news. So wildfire na enna, adoda causes, adoda impacts, right, and like what measures can be taken, idu padi padinga along with examples. Why is examples important? Recent vara nariya disaster management questions inga pathina, somewhere they are always asking illustrate with examples or give two examples in kekranga. So here quoting examples is required. So try to have a rough idea on this. So guys, yes, so with this vandu pathina we have covered almost all the major topics for today, right. So in the context yes, few things that I want you to go back and read. So economy பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் நிறைய basic concepts நம்ம பார்த்திருக்கோம். I want you all to go back and read about topics like inflation, balance of payment, right, tariffs, right, and அதுக்கப்புறம் like a few other areas that we just saw, import, export, all these things that we've discussed, please go and read. International relations பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் please read about the relationship between India and Japan, right, US and India ongoing tariff war, right. Next one வந்து India and China's relationship and how can we leverage on it. Next one வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா implications of Russia-Ukraine war on India, right, although now like it's calmed down, right, it's calmed down, but still the implications in the context of India, idu pathiyume you have to go and read. Apart from that, environmental angle la paakumbodhu any species in news, right, repeated topics I have not covered. So yes, paper la vandu pathina special intensive revision was there, a topic on the governor was there, right, and next one vandu on Israel Palestine conflict and on the situation of Gaza was there. Many topics were repeated, adu vandu we have skipped because we've been doing it repeatedly, right. So please cover all of this. I hope you all had a good day, right. Thank you, and I hope the discussion was useful.